Good afternoon, lads. So what's today? Today is Wednesday, I think. This is going to be episode 18 of our little cannoning series. So the last episode, you can see we just finished our little 10 stacker, and we released that scam. And now what I'm going to be teaching you is sort of the next step up. So in a couple of videos time, I'm going to start on a 100 stacker, and we're going to start dealing with some fundamentals for that before we get into it. So the first thing that I do want to talk about is, I'll just shuffle this area along a little bit. Set bedrock. First thing I want to talk about is, I guess, to lead into this nicely, is slabs. So you're going to see an issue with this cannon. This cannon's not going to go through walls where there's slabs. So if we say put a slab at the very bottom here, I think that's in line, roughly. Nah, it's a block over. Oh, no, I should be right. So we go TNT fill, refill, and now we fire this. Where's the button? Oh, there it is. Forgot where I put my own button on the cannon. Anyway, so if we fire that, you should see... Boom. There's absolutely nothing to slabs, and that's going to be the biggest weakness of this cannon. But you might be wondering now, how do we get around that? And how do we actually deal with slabs? And so the way we deal with slabs is we abuse something called order of entities. So in the game, there's a very, very specific order in which things will become entities. So when TNT is dispensed, it becomes an entity. When TNT is, or when sand is made into a falling block, it then becomes an entity. And there's a very, very set order in which the game calculates how these entities work. So for this video here, we're going to be talking about order of entities, and I guess tunneling to an extent as well. So basically what we're going to do is we are going to sort of clear some things up, I guess. So we're going to get some redstone blocks on the common redstone blocks. This is almost like another part of TNT, I guess. Let's get pistons, anything that can power something, we're going to get a block of. So we'll use observers as well. So this is redstone, and we're going to have a repeater. We're going to have, I think it's comparator, torch, piston with an observer, sticky piston with a redstone block. Now the reason why I've done this in this order is because this is the order in which the TNT will be rendered. So what I mean by that is, say we have a situation like, okay, so I'm going to clear the redstone out. If we have a situation like this, you can see they are both on one tick, but this redstone here is actually rendering first. So it's going to be a bit of a tough concept to get your head around, but the best way that I can demonstrate that it is actually going forwards is if we go multi-M150. So what I'm doing here is I'm using some multi-dispensers to show this, which can emulate a certain amount of TNT in one dispenser. You can't use them on actual servers for obvious reasons, but what you can do is you can use them to test ratios and stuff. So what I'm actually going to do is multi-M150. I'm actually going to put it like right on the edge here. I'm going to put 2 there. And then what we're going to do is do something like this. We have a comparator there and a repeater there. Now these are both on the same timing. So what you would typically expect to happen is, say that there's going to be an explosion here and an explosion here. However, that is actually not the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to stack this up one, stack one up. So you can see we've got a line of blocks now in the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to fire this. And let's see what happens. So you can see they look like they go off simultaneously, but bang. So this is something called tunneling, and it basically occurs when you have 2 sets of TNT that are on the same tick but are rendered differently. So this is the most typical example here. So where you have a repeater and you have a comparator. The repeater's rendered before the comparator, but they're both still on one tick. So what it actually does is it pushes this TNT out here, and while that TNT is traveling within that game tick there, it's actually doing something called tunneling. So where you get that scenario like that, where it just absolutely tears through a line of dry blocks. So the reason why I actually have all of these things set up like this is we're going to use this as a comparison now. So basically, for any of these scenarios here, say if we have a set of dispensers powered by an observer and a set of dispensers powered by, say, a redstone block, what's going to happen is the observer actually gets rendered before the redstone block. What we do need to do here actually is we do need to add another repeater, because this is 2 ticks here and that's 1 tick there. But regardless, if we still have that redstone block there and we actually power this scenario here, this is going to be rendered before this piece of TNT here, and it's going to tunnel just like that there. So what we're going to do from here is I'm going to show you each sort of little way is rendered. So if we say have a repeater here, if our repeater if we have say a repeater and a comparator, it's going to tunnel the comparator. If we have a repeater and a redstone torch, it's going to tunnel the torch, and so on and so on. So the repeater is always the first thing to go off. I remember I had like a decent example to show you how this rendering sort of works, but I don't remember how I made it. But basically, you just need to remember that repeaters are the first thing to go off. The second thing to go off are comparators. So basically, if you have a comparator and let's ignore the repeater for now because the comparator is the second thing to render. I think it's if you have a comparator and a redstone torch, whatever goes off the comparator gets rendered before the redstone torch. Same goes for the redstone torch, and then the observer, and then the redstone block. So any of these, in this order here, if you have any of these combinations, it will always tunnel. If you have a torch and a sticky piston with an observer, provided that they are both 2 ticks, it's going to tunnel the sticky piston with the observer. If you have a torch and a redstone block, provided that they're the same ticks, it's going to tunnel the redstone block. So whatever is the furthest left of all of these things here takes priority. Comparator, redstone torch, comparator takes priority, comparator goes first. Now the reason why I'm saying all of this is because this all ties into something called order of entities, which is going to be the way we actually break the slabs on a wall. So basically how this works, it's quite hard to explain, I guess, initially. But TNT, or sand I should say, falls into this exact same system. But it's so hard for me to like actually try and make a working example here. So basically, what's the first thing to get rendered is the first thing to stack. That's generally how I remember order of entities. The first thing to get rendered is always the first thing to stack. And why I say stack is because order of entities is the most important when you're talking about your hammer. So basically what you can do is you can abuse the order in which you render things to change how they stack on the wall. So say we are going to, let's make an example. So say what we do is we have our hammer. This is going to be our hammer here. Well, let's go up here. So what we're going to do, same example as whatever we did with this one here. We're going to get some sand at the bottom. The hammer is our second power. Sand is our first power. Let's get a sign. Let's talk about, so that's the hammer. That's our sand. So that's the very, very first basic example with what we did. And what we're going to do from here is we are going to add some extra things. So we've got our one-shot TNT, or not our one-shot TNT, sorry, our one-rev TNT with that single piece of TNT, where was it? There, that we shoot in with our sand power that actually physically raises the height of the TNT and the sand on the wall. And up here we have our, if we get a red piece of sandstone, we have our one-shot sand. And up here as well, we also have our scatter. So what we're going to do from here is we are going to talk about how this is ordered. So generally, for this sort of scenario here, it doesn't really matter. We're not nuking or anything. We don't have anything going for the sand stack. But what we're going to do now is we are going to add something called our slab bust. Clues in the name, it's going to bust basically any block where it's just slightly dry on the top. So slabs, enchantment tables, any sort of half block like this, it's going to destroy that with the slab bust. So how slab bust is going to work is we actually abuse the order of entities here. So this is, oh, why can't I write? Oh, there we go, lagging a bit. So basically, when I was saying order of entities, as I said, first to fall, first to stack. So what we want to do is we want to make our slab bust go off first. So the first thing we're going to do is with our slab bust, we're actually going to have that tunneled with our hammer. So when I say tunneled, what I mean here is say we have our hammer on observers here. What we can do is we can have our slab bust on a sticky piston with a redstone block. And what it's then going to do is it's actually going to tunnel the slab bust first. So it will tunnel down the wall first. Now this is before any sand is stacked. So what we can do is actually, screw it. Let's try and rig this up on our little test rig here. So this is going to be our slab bust. Now we need to make it on the same tick as the hammer, but it needs to be rendered later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that. It's going to look absolutely ugly as hell. But now what we need to go back to is these signs here. Our hammer is on 11 redstone ticks, so we are also going to make our slab bust on 11 redstone ticks. So we have 1, 2 redstone ticks at the moment. We're going to add 4, takes it to 6, add 4, takes it to 10. We're going to add 1 more to take it to 11. So before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliberately mistime it. So currently it's on 10 redstone ticks, which means it's going to be going off. It's actually going to be going off as at the same time as our 1 rev. So if we go over to this wall here, I'm going to set the floor to a protection block first. So let's go set emerald block. And we fire this. So we still have this slab on this wall, I think. So what's going to happen here is our slab bust is too early. So if we fire that, what it's going to do is it's actually going to shoot our hammer up even higher, and I don't think it's even going to stack at all. You can see there, oh, that's funny. That wasn't the slab bust, I think that was actually due to swinging. So we'll just ignore that for the time being. So let's put that back in, and let's do that. So where's it stacking? It's stacking there. So we've still got that slab there, and our wall is still intact. Let's make it deliberately 1 redstone tick after the hammer. So what it's actually going to do here is it will shoot down the slab bust, but it's still not doing what we want. It's destroying the slab. Yeah, so you can see there it did shoot down the slab bust, and it did destroy the slab, but we can do better than that. So if we fire that again, you'll see there's a tiny bit of delay with the slab bust. Yeah, so it does destroy the slab, but it only stacks 1 sand. But now if we take it to 11 redstone ticks, the exact same timing as the hammer, just rendered later using that sticky piston and the redstone block, should see that, let's have a look. Oh, I've actually got it off. Oops, my bad. I'm actually just going to add the slabs on the next wall. I'm a bit lazy today. So we're going to add our slabs here. And we're going to add just some blocks underneath. Fire. So we fire that again. There you go. So it's actually destroyed the slab and stacked in the exact same shot. So that's slab bust. So from here on out, everything that we're going to be doing with our cannons now is going to be abusing this order of entities. So the reason why that worked and we were able to stack sand is because the first thing that we rendered here was our slab bust. One rev doesn't matter because we're not really shooting our one rev down. But basically what I'm trying to hint with this is we actually have our sand, or our sand needs to be rendered super late. Well, not super late. Basically what needs to happen is at the wall. So I'm going to just copy this scenario across here. And I'm going to show you what happens. So we go up 1. And we go copy, copy. Okay, so the signs didn't save. That's okay. But you can... Okay, so it's a bit hard to explain. It's going to make a lot more sense on the one stacker. But basically, what's happening is your one rev's going up. It shoots everything up, just by a little bit of a block. And the next thing that happens is the game calculates your slab bust. So because your slab bust was first to be rendered, specifically it was rendered before this sand. What's going to happen is it's actually going to do the slab bust first. So it's going to fire the slab bust down first. If there's a slab, it's going to destroy it. Or any one of these blocks, it will destroy. And then what's going to happen is the game's going to calculate the sand. So now it's just going to stack the sand after destroying the slab. Just like that. And then everything else is going to go off. However, if we deal with the other scenario, where say we have our slab bust after our sand, slab bust, it's still going to slab bust, but what's going to happen first is all this sand's going to be shot down onto the slab, all the sand is going to break, and then the slab bust is going to hit the slab. So I'll show you that again. So if we go up to say this wall here, we put some slabs there, and now what we're going to do is deliberately render it before our hammer. So I can show you. So this is one redstone tick. We're going to break that, and we're going to replace it with that. So what we're going to do again is now we're going to fire. So that's on the exact same timing, it's just now rendered before the hammer. Okay. Is it? Okay. What? It's on 10 redstone ticks. No, it's on 11. Okay. Bit confused now. Did it work? Oh, so that's probably the swing. The slabs are still there. Okay, I've gotten myself confused. Point is, it's not working. End of the day. But anyway, yeah, it's a bit weird actually. I'm not quite sure why that's not working properly. But anyway, that's not breaking the slabs. So, the reason why we're going to want our sand rendered quite early now, as you can see here, we've got a shitload of delay going to our sand, is because with this 100 stacker, we're going to start wanting to do some more damage to the walls. So actually what we're going to be doing is we're going to be abusing the order of entities. And what I'll show you as just a little teaser for what we're going to be doing with our 100 stacker. So we go back to this situation here with our one rev. We're going to be adding something. We're going to be changing our scatter, and we're going to be calling that our nuke hammer. And now we're going to be changing our, we're going to keep everything down here, and we're also going to add something called a nuke. And basically, that nuke is going to be rendered after the sand, after the slab bust. So what's going to happen now? One rev goes off, slab bust goes before the sand, so slab bust goes down, destroys that slab there. And now the sand stacks, and because we have our nuke after the sand, we suddenly end up in a situation like this, where we have our nuke here. That's our nuke. And on the top, so our hammer's gone off, our one-shot sand has stacked, one-shot sand, and our nuke hammer hasn't gone off yet. Now we end up in a situation like this. Now the thing that I was talking about with our slab bust, how that tunnels, our little rig here, where is it? Here. where you can see just the amount of damage that this is doing to, say, normal blocks. Set cobblestone. We're just going to fire that again, just so I can show you that it is still working. So this is the exact same rendering. We fire that, and it'll go. Oh, that's on a explosion-proof block or whatever. Is that enabled? Let's enable explosion particles. Looks cooler. Let's fire that again. Bang. And now, what we basically have on the wall is we have our sand stacked up all the way at the top. And our sand has a nuke inside of it at the very top of the sand stack. Because it's being rendered after the sand, it's being stacked last. So our nuke is ending up at the very top of this sand stack. Our nuke hammer is ending up in our one-shot sand. And now what we're going to do, that's actually meant to be nuke hammer. What we're going to do is this nuke hammer is going to be on the exact same timings as your nuke, and your nuke is going to be rendered later. So what's going to happen from here, your nuke hammer explodes, puts a bit of a hole in the wall, and then what's going to happen from there, because these blocks are dry, because the water hasn't flown in yet, it's going to go bang. And it's going to nuke down your entire sand stack. Well, not your entire sand stack, it's dependent on how much TNT you are having for your nuke. But that's basically, that's how you're going to be nuking. That's how you're going to be doing more damage to the walls. So pretty much keep in mind that whatever you want to stack first needs to be rendered first. So if you put your sand rendered before your slab bust, it's going to stack your sand first, break on the slab, and then it's going to do your slab bust, and it's going to break the slab, which is useless. You don't want that. So you want slab bust first, sand second, and then your nuke third. If you say do your slab bust and then your nuke, you're going to end up in a situation where your slab bust's going to go off at the very bottom. Next thing to stack is going to be your nuke. Your nuke's going to end up at the very bottom. And then the final thing to stack will be your sand. And you're going to get a sand stack and you're going to get absolutely no damage. So that's going to be the specific order we're going to render the next cannon in, our 100 stacker. If you want clarification for anything that I've talked about in this video, or sort of how this rendering works, feel free to DM me on Discord. But that's going to be the end of this video. So this is going to be just a nice quick one, order of entities, all that sort of stuff. And then in the next video, we're going to start talking about sand compressors. Because if we're going to make a 100 stacker, this is not going to be doing 100 sand. So we need to switch strategies from this to something larger that can hold a lot more sand. So that's going to be next video. Apart from that, I'll catch you all in the next one.